Dr. Hima Kumar, good morning.
Good morning, sir. Good morning.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Perfectly.
I am requesting you to kindly start the session on time, sir, as I do
Yes,
have
yes.
a meeting
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
just after.
Saraswati?
I do have a meeting
Yes,
actually just after
Yeah,
the
yeah.
session.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
yes.
Saraswati, you can
Sujita,
start.
yes. Sujita,
Sir, my voice audible, sir?
Audible, ma.
Okay, sir. Shall I start, sir?
Yes, ma.
Good morning to one and all. I wholeheartedly welcome our chief guest, all respected faculties, and my dear friends who are here to attend this virtual webinar on Lean Startup and Minimum Viable Product organized by the IIC and IEDC of PTU. A Lean Startup is a human institution designed to create a new product or service under conditions of extreme uncertainty. And a minimum viable product is that vision of a new product which allows a team to collect the maximum amount of validated learning about customers with the least effort. Now we call upon Mr. Surya, MBA IEV, first year, to give away the intro of our chief guest.
A very good morning to all. It's my privilege to welcome our resource person of the session, Dr. Bhaskar Gupta, who is an academician, whom research scientist and director, IITRA Technical Campus, joined as a officiating director and dean at IIMT Group of Colleges, Greater Noida in June 2020. He is presently working as a president of IIC Cell and trained as a innovation ambassador by Ministry of Education Innovation Cell. He is startups founder and currently handling MSMB based incubation center having more than 35 startups. He has more than 5 Indian patents published, 2 copyrights, and books chapters in CRC Press. He wears many hands on academic profession. Thank you.
Thank you, Surya. Now I call upon our resource person to take over the session.
Thank you very much for such a nice introduction. I will be joining from my laptop in a couple of minutes. Am I audible to you?
yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So is PPT visible to you all?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much for such a nice introduction by Dr. Hema Kumar, and I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the director of PTU, Puducherry Technological University, president of IICCL, vice president, convener, council members, and coordinators of this webinar. Thank you very much to you all for giving me an opportunity to be a part of this IAC journey, and today's topic is one of the quarter 4 activities, which is on lean startup and minimum viable product under the conditions of uncertainty, of course. So let me officially begin and hopeful that the session will be very informative for you all. So if you look at the agile ecosystem, we are going to talk about lean startup. What is a startup? A human institution designed to create something new under conditions of extreme uncertainty by Eric Ries, who actually introduced the concept of lean startup a couple of years back. The term startup refers to a company in the first stages of operations. Startups are founded by one or more entrepreneurs who want to develop some innovative product or want to offer service for which they believe there is a demand in the market. These companies generally start with high costs and limited revenue, which is why they look for capital from a variety of sources such as venture capitalists or angel investors, successful entrepreneurs, or some other government funding schemes. A startup is a company that is in the initial stages of business. Founders normally finance their startups and may attempt to attract outside investment before they get off the ground. Funding sources include family and friends, venture capitalists, crowdfunding approach, and bank loans. Startups must also consider where they will do business, and they have to be aware of their legal structure. Startups come with high degree of risk as failure is very much possible, but they can also be very unique places to work with great benefits, a focus on innovation, and great opportunities to learn. Understanding startups is very important. Startups are companies or ventures that are focused on a single product or service that the founders want to bring to market. These companies typically don't have a fully developed business model or innovative business model, I must say, and more crucially, lack adequate capital to move on to the next phase of the business. Most of these companies are initially funded by their founders. Many startups turn to others for more funding, including family, friends, and VCs. Silicon Valley in USA is known for its strong VC community and is a popular destination for startups, but is also widely considered the most demanding arena. Startups can use seed capital, seed funding to invest in research and to develop their business plans. Market research helps determine the demand for a product or service, while a comprehensive business plan outlines the company's mission statement, vision, objective, and goals, as well as management and marketing strategies. So, what are the special considerations? There are a number of different factors that entrepreneurs must think of as they try to get their startups off the ground and begin operations. We have listed some of the most common ones below. The first one is about location. Location can make or break any business, and it is often one of the most important considerations for anyone starting up in the business world. Startups must decide whether their business is conducted online, in an office or home office, or in a store. The location depends on the product or service being offered by you. For example, a technology-based startup selling virtual reality hardware may need a physical storefront to give customers a face-to-face demonstration of the product's complex features. So location is depending on the product. Suppose you are developing some innovative product, so in that case you need some physical location. You have to identify the place where you can start your business. In case of any online application development, any other kind of online service is not requiring any physical space. In that case, you can start your business from a single room. You have to be aware of legal structure as well. Startups need to consider what legal structure best fits their entity. A sole proprietorship is suited for a founder who is also the key employee of a business. Partnerships are a viable legal structure for businesses that consist of several people who have joint ownership, and they are also fairly straightforward to establish. Personal liability can be reduced to some extent by registering a startup as a limited liability company LLC. At this point of time, it is very imperative to understand that you can register your company. There are 7 types of entities around us as a private limited company, limited liability, partnership firm, sole proprietorship, in case, single person company, private company, public company. So it is up to you how you want to register, how are you going to incorporate your business venture. Funding. Startups often raise funds by turning to family and friends or by using venture capitalists. This is a group of professional investors that specialize in funding startups. Crowdfunding has become a viable way for many people to get access to the cash they need to move forward in the business process. The entrepreneur sets up a crowdfunding page online, allowing people who believe in the company to donate money. Startups may use credit to commence their operations. A perfect credit history may allow the startup to use a line of credit as funding. This option carries the most risk, particularly if the startup is unsuccessful. Other companies choose small business loans to help fuel growth. Banks typically have several specialized options available for small businesses. A microloan is a short-term, low-interest product tailored for startups. A detailed business plan is often required in order to qualify. Advantages and disadvantages of startups. So numerous advantages, so we have to be aware of pros and cons. There are a variety of advantages to working for a startup. More responsibility and opportunities to learn are due, as startups have fewer employees than large companies. Established companies, employees tend to wear many hats, working in a variety of roles, which leads to more responsibility as well as opportunities to learn. Startups tend to be more relaxed in nature, making the workplace more of a communal experience with flexible hours, increased employee interaction, and flexibility. Startups tend to also have better workplace benefits such as nurseries for children, free food, and shorter work weeks. The work at startups can also be more rewarding as innovation is always welcomed and managers allow talented employees to run with innovative ideas with little supervision. One of the primary disadvantages of a startup is increased risk. This primarily applies to the success and longevity of a startup. New businesses need to prove themselves and raise capital before they can start turning a profit. Keeping investors happy with the startup's progress is critical. The risk of shutting down or not having enough capital to continue operations before turning a profit is ever present. Long hours are characteristic of startups as everyone is working toward the same goal, to see the startup succeed. This can lead to high stress moments and sometimes compensation that is not commensurate with the hours worked. Competition is also always high, as there tend to be a handful of startups working on the same kind of idea. So you have to be very careful whenever you are going to work on some innovative process or the service or the product. In fact, I would say you should make use of design thinking process in order to understand your customers, their wants and needs, and based on that you can modify, you can add value to your product. This way you can differentiate from others, because it's a red ocean. So many competitors are there working on the same kind of product which you are going to develop Once you have developed it, just after the prototyping for the validated learning, I think your startup will fail, your idea will die. It has been observed in past decade that three-fourths of startups fail in their business journey due to the lack of innovative business model canvas, lean canvas, technology readiness level, manufacturing readiness level, design thinking process, product market fit. So you have to be very, very careful. So pros, more opportunities to learn, increased responsibility, flexibility, workplace benefits, innovation is encouraged, flexible hours. Cons, yes, there is always a risk of failure during your startup journey. You have to raise capital. Getting money in the early stages of any startup is very, very difficult because nobody is interested in if you have very innovative idea, in that case only somebody would like to invest money in your business venture or in your enterprise. Of course, you have to be a moderate risk taker. A lot of risk is involved. You have to be a very good team leader as a founder of your company. You would have to undergo high level of stress sometimes. You would have to spend more hours because this belongs to you. This is your business. This is very different. The entrepreneur's mindset is very different from the other kind of people. Competitive business environment is there. So you have to be very, very careful because the ultimate goal of any startup is to generate the revenue, is to go for scalability and sustainability. So let's have a few examples of startups. Dot-coms were a common startup in 1990s. Venture capital was extremely easy to obtain during this time due to a frenzy among investors to speculate on the emergence of these new business ventures. Unfortunately, most of these internet startups eventually went bust due to major flaws in their business plans, such as lacking a path to sustainable revenue. However, a handful of companies survived when the dot-com bubble burst. Amazon, eBay are just two examples. Many startups fail within the first few years of the journey. That's why this initial period is very important and significant. Entrepreneurs need to find money, create a business model, and innovative business plan or the business pitch, hiring key personnel, work out intricate details such as equity stakes for partners and investors, and plan for the long run. Many of today's most successful companies are Microsoft, Apple Corporation, Meta, formerly Facebook, to name a few, began as startups and ended up becoming publicly traded companies. How do you start a startup company? The first step in starting a startup is having a great and innovative idea. And of course, you have to innovate the things by making use of disruptive kind of innovation, which is used by Ola, Uber, Meesho, Airbnb, Oyo Rooms. Number of examples are there. From there, market research is the next step to determine how feasible the idea is, whether commercial viability is there, product feasibility has to be checked before commercialization, and what the current marketplace looks like for your idea. After the market research, creating a business plan that outlines your company's structure, goals, mission, values, and objectives is the next step. One of the most important steps is obtaining funding. This can come from savings, friends, family, investors, or a loan. Mudra Bank loan facility is also available. After raising funding, make sure you have done all the correct legal and paperwork. This means registering your business and obtaining any required licenses or permits. After this, establish a business location. From there, create an advertising plan, to attract customers, establish a customer base, and adapt as your business grows. The bottom line, starting a company can be a difficult venture, but a rewarding one. Having a great idea and attempting to bring it to market comes with a host of challenges, such as attracting capital, employees, marketing, legal work, and managing finances. Keep in mind, though, that startups lead to increased job satisfaction and the possibility of leaving a legacy. So if you look at this cycle of startup, it is always about innovative ideas. These innovative ideas comes from your imagination, creativity, which is very, very fuzzy in nature and can never be clarified until you are going to develop the product. It is related to innovation. You have to develop some innovative business model, some technological breakthrough must be there so that you are going to transform the industry. I am talking about radical innovation. You have to make use of sustaining kind of innovation in order to sustain in the market, like being used by Apple Corporation since last many years. You have to make use of incremental kind of innovation where you have to make significant changes for your product or the service you are going to offer. So please don't forget to make use of disruptive kind of innovation or other kinds of innovations in order to disrupt the existing market for your product. You have to plan the things. You have to work in a team. So any budding entrepreneur or a successful entrepreneur has to be a good team leader. You have to be very courageous. You have to be a moderate risk taker. More risk is involved. You have to look for investments in your business. You have to look for some emerging trends around you, whether you are working on right product or right service, which you want to commercialize for revenue generation. You have to look for other types of financial resources or resources for day-to-day operations of your or running your business. You have to work on appropriate marketing strategy for branding of your product or the service. And of course, you have to develop very, very innovative product which must be different from others existing in the market. So startup ecosystem we have to develop, and the government is working very hard since 2015, where the Startup India scheme is there launched by Prime Minister. So in order to develop the startup ecosystem, entrepreneurial ecosystem, a vibrant kind of ecosystem, in order to transform, in order to nurture your innovative ideas into big opportunities, business opportunities. So whenever we are going to talk about startup ecosystem, it is about to develop the technical skills. We don't require any scientific skills, entrepreneurial mindset, entrepreneurial culture, experienced mentors in case your startup is registered under some incubator or accelerator. You can have some mentoring support, co-working space, seed funding for a period of 2 to 3 years at least without any equity stake, regulatory environment, collaborative culture, visible successes, risk tolerance, availability of capital are all part of startup ecosystem. Different types of startups are there: scalable startups, large company startups, small business startups. If you are working for public, so it is called social startup, where you are going to address the problem of the public. Lifestyle startups, viable startups. So business incubators support. How business incubators help startups? They are providing access to angel investors who can invest their money in your business for your innovative product. Mentoring support is provided to these founders, technical assistance, of course, IP management, intellectual property management, marketing expertise, finance, accounting services, social network, shared operational costs in expensive workplace, seed funding support will be provided by these TBIs or simple technology-based incubators. What is a startup? Startup is equal to experiment. What is lean startup? An approach that advocates creating small products that test the creator's assumptions or hypotheses and using customer feedback to evolve the product, thereby reducing waste. So that is the concept of lean startup. It has to do nothing with the money. It is going to make use of validated learning where you are going to empathize with your customers, and based on their needs you are going to pivot on your products until you get the right product for commercialization, and reducing the waste in minimum time. You are going to do all these things. That is the lean startup concept by Eric Ries. What is lean startup? Method to systematically address uncertainty through rapid iteration and market learning. So what I mean to say, so a lot of uncertainty is there. So please first take feedback from your user, what they want from you, what they are expecting. Based on that, you have to do rapid iteration for your product or the service by having market learning and develop some innovative product. Lean startup is a process for validating and invalidating your assumptions as quickly as possible to discover and deliver what people actually want from you, from your business. Lean startup starts with a vision where we have to understand the people around us who are our customers. We have to understand their needs, wants, and pains. And according to that, based on that, you have to develop, you have to go for ideation. That I have an idea, where ideation refers to idea generation. So you have to be very visionary. After understanding, empathizing your customers, you have to develop idea. Then you have to develop innovative business model. Development is very, very necessary. Customer development process, if you look at, starts with customer discovery. So once you have discovered your customer, you have identified the market segment, you have to validate your customer. Validated learning has to be performed. And if your product or prototype or minimum viable product is not acceptable in the market, you have to pivot on your product, repeat, and until you get the right product or service. Once it is done, you have to create the customer database. You have to go for customer creation. Once the customer creation is done, you can build your company. So that is the customer development process. So identify scalable and repeatable sales model, turn hypothesis into facts, and pivot. Change of strategy based on validate learning, a special kind of change designed to test a new fundamental hypothesis about the product, business model, and engine of growth. A pivot requires that we keep one foot rooted in what we have learned so far while making a fundamental change in marketing strategy. If you don't know what you are doing, better to do it fast. Customer development process is about customer discovery, which is about problem solution fit, minimum viable product. So what is minimum viable product? I will be discussing little later. Proposed funnel, then customer validation. Your product should be market fit. It is about innovative business model. It is about your sales and marketing roadmap. So this is the part of pivoting. Customer creation, where you are having scale execution, company building, about scaling, scale organization, scale operations.
Excuse me,
There
sir.
are knowns. These are things we know that we know. There are known unknowns. That is to say, There are things that we know we don't know, but there are also unknowns. There are things we don't know. Donald Rumsfeld.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes,
A small doubt, sir. Can you just go to the previous 2 slides, sir?
yes. This one?
Yes, sir. So for the customer creation part, so you put scale execution, right, sir? So I
Yes.
didn't understand that properly. So can you just give me an example and
Customer
enlighten me,
creation
sir?
is about, see, you have to execute for scaling. Where you are going to scale up, you have to increase the size of your customer. Once you have identified your market segment, you have validated your customer, okay, by using your minimum viable product. Once you have developed the product which is fit for the market, now you have to create your customer. Customer creation means you have to find out in which market you are going to sell your product, because a lot of competition is there. You have to identify the location, market segment, and you based on customer validation. So that is about customer creation. I hope you must have understood.
Sir, okay, sir. But then what is scale execution exactly, sir? Sir told executing the scale. Okay, sir. But then what
Scale
is
execution
scale in what?
it is about scaling. You are going to scale up your customer database, and that process is to be executed. That is the meaning of scale execution.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
So traditional product development, it is about progress, advancing to the next stage. So if you look at, you have some known problem, you have the requirements, you have the problem statement, you have to design now. You have to design the innovative solution for the identified problem statement. You have to implement it. You have to verify your assumptions and hypothesis. You have to go for maintenance. That is, you have a known solution for the known problem. Here, product development at typical startup assumes customers and markets are understood. So here you have a known problem. You are the product owner or in-house customer. Agility is there. You have to speed up the process. And here unknown solution is there in this particular case. Here it's customer development engineering. If you look at, there is an unknown problem and unknown solution is there. So again, you have to go for customer development process. You have to discover your customer. You have to validate your customer. You have to do, customer creation. You have to build your company, because so you are going to validate your hypothesis. You are going to validate your experiments. You have to discover the insights of the customers yourself, because they will never tell you what they want. It is your job to empathize with them. So you have to gather the data, you have to get the feedback, you have to collect the insights from them, and then you have to develop the innovative solution for the unknown problem. Lean startup. So here we have known problem. So here lean startup is about mostly unknown problem, unknown solution. So it is very uncertainty is there. That's why we are not sure whether we are going to succeed or not. Startups search for assumptions always about the unknown problems. Existing companies execute what they know. Result, you build something your customer really wants. The why before the what. Most startups don't fail because they can't build a great product, but because no one wanted the product. So try to add some value to your product or service which you are going to offer. So foundation of lean startup is a cycle which starts from building, measurement, and learning. So you have to be very visionary. So do remember to build, to measure, to learn. So here you are going to build your product. You are going to have measurement. From the measurement, you are going to learn, and you are going to perform iterations and going to build some innovative product. But do remember, to lean approach is always to reduce the waste, has to reduce the time of the cycle. So you have to speed up the process. You have to validate the assumptions. So what is validated learning? Learning is often used as an excuse for a failure of execution or after the fact rationalization. To draw a clear distinction, Lean Startup uses the word validated. Validated learning is the process of demonstrating empirically that a team has discovered valuable truths about a startup's present and future business prospects. So traditional startup versus lean startup, you can look at this here. This lean startup approach is always about building measurements and learning. Traditional approach is a sequential approach, not cyclic approach. Lean startup life cycle. To steer a startup, minimize the total time through the feedback loop. Enter the build phase with an MVP in mind, minimum viable product. Evaluate progress using innovative accounting. So again, this cycle is about, please do remember, build, measure, learn. This is non-sequential approach. Innovation accounting, establish real data on where the company is right now. It applies to the measure and learn phases in the loop. A quantitative approach to see whether a startup's efforts are bearing fruit or not. Learning milestones are an alternative to traditional business and product milestones. After the startup has made all the micro changes and product optimization, it can too move its baseline toward the ideal. The company reaches a decision point. Was the hypothesis correct? What changes necessary to the current strategy? Lean startup life cycle is about building. So you start with innovative ideas. You are going to build something. You are doing coding. After that, you are going to have measurements, testing, and based on that data is generated, you are going to learn and you are going to build. So we need to test hypotheses or assumptions. We have to perform the validated learning. So lean startup approach is always going to address validated learning. Lean startup versus Deming's wheel. If you compare, lean startup is about building, measuring, learning, while Deming's wheel is about planning, doing, checking, and then act. The biggest difference is in focus on minimizing total time throughout the loop. So what is the difference? That if you are comparing Deming's wheel, it is going to take more time, throughout the feedback loop. And the approach of lean is to reduce the feedback loop time and reducing waste. So that is the comparison. So that is the difference between these two wheels. Minimum viable product is a version of the product that enables a full turn of the build, measure, learn loop with a minimum amount of effort and the least amount of development time. So do remember, least efforts must be there and the product has to be developed in minimum time. You have to speed up the process by using validated learning, by using building, measurement, and learning cycle as core features which allow the product to be deployed. Helps in avoiding building a product that the customers do not want. Can be deployed to early adopters who might invest, who might be interested in your product, early adopters that are thought to be more likely to provide feedback about your product or the service or the process. The quality principle. If we do not know who the customer is, we do not know what quality is. Try not to presuppose what attribute of the product will the customer consider as worthwhile. Learn what the customers care about. Remove any feature, process, or effort that does not contribute directly to the learning that you seek. MVP, problems in building. Some legal issues are there sometimes. Fear of competition, branding risks, fear of failure. So minimum viable product, if it is just minimum, it means nobody wants to use it. but you are going to combine minimum with viability. The product you are interested, you want to build. If you are going to add, minimum with viable, joint area is there in between. This is about good features, which you are going to test. And outside of it, it is a waste. And you have to reduce this waste. That is the purpose of using minimum viable product. So minimum viable product is about minimum. Nobody wants to use it. Doesn't solve the problem, is not going to address the right problem. Maybe your problem was not genuine, not solvable. So you have to understand, please identify the right problem. In case you have identified the wrong problem and you have reached the stage of minimum viable product, which is almost the last stage of any startup life cycle, in that case, you cannot make any changes. So you have to combine minimum with viable. And here, the minimum viable product, your product will be having good sufficient number of features in order to validate your idea. So this is the concept of minimum plus viable. Once viability you are going to maximize, it means now your product has been accepted. Now you are going to build your product for commercialization. So minimum viable product, you can look at this. So here, this below one, everyone likes this. So here, gradually moving from cycle to motorcycle to the car. But what is happening above, you can look at. So that's not minimum viable product. A technique to start the learning process as quickly as possible. The fastest way to get through the loop with minimum amount of effort. Unlike a prototype or concept testing, an MVP is designed not just to answer product design or technical questions. Its goal is to test fundamental business hypotheses. Any additional work beyond what was required to start learning is waste. So MVP, shitty product. The minimum viable product is that version of a new product which allows a team to collect the maximum amount of validated learning about customers with least effort, by Eric Ries. So if you look at this MVP development, where it's maturity over the time, so starting with some innovative idea, reaching a saturation level where you reach, proof of concept, experimental proof of concept. And I would like to inform you that very, large time is wasted in trial and error method during MVP development. After a long period of time, you are going to achieve a maturity level and stability in your startup journey. So what are the advantages of MVP development? A prototype is being used as a proof of concept. Low risk investments, short development time is the most important advantage of any MVP development. MVP is designed to change the world by trying new ideas, supposed to solve world real problems. It is the problem that makes an MVP viable. Built to learn user feedback, more minimal than you think. MVP is not about getting profit, designed to impress users, supposed to be an end product carved in stone. So MVP is never developed for any kind of profit. Do remember, it is only developed for the purpose of validation. So lean startup, several myths are there. What is myth number one? Lean means cheap. Lean startups try to spend as little money as possible. This is the myth about lean startup. The lean startup method is not about cost. It is about the speed. It is about the least efforts. It is about reducing the time of the cycle. Myth 2, the lean startup is only for software companies. No, this is not true at all. Lean startup approach can be applied anywhere where a lot of uncertainty is there, like, lean software development, lean hardware, lean manufacturing. So many of companies are there who are going to make use of lean startup approach these days. So what's the truth? The lean startup applies to all companies that face uncertainty about what customers will want. Number three, lean startups are small startups. So, what's the truth? Lean startups are ambitious and are able to deploy large amounts of capital. Startup is not a small version of a big company. Lean startup is not cheap, but it is fast. A guarantee for success is their shortcut. Fail fast, no doubt, spending less money, less time, but put a process, methodology around it, and do have validated learning. Get ready to fail. In India, three-fourths of startups fail every year, and there are around 100 unicorn startups in India as of May 2022, and of which 26 or 27 are founded by the alumni of IIT Delhi. So 90% of startups fail, 80% of new products fail, three-fourths of startups fail, 70% of all new product launches fail in the first year itself. You rarely hit the bull's eye, but this never stopped you from playing. Design an experiment that attempts to answer the question, create series of fast and cheap micro experiments that lead you to validated learning. The unit of progress for lean startups is called validated learning. So Agile Manifesto versus Lean Startups. Agile Manifesto, where we value working software over documentation. So what are lean startups? Obviously, you must have understood till now, we value learning over working software. So lean startup principles, you have to eliminate waste. Don't waste a bunch of time building something that no one might want. Create knowledge. Lean startups are all about learning. Short iterations with a tight feedback loop to allow us to learn and adapt. Fail fast. If something is not going to work, figure it out as soon as possible so we can move on to something that will. So lean startup, move as fast as possible, learn as much as possible. Don't be afraid to pivot. Don't be afraid to fail. Validate everything. Lean startup method, I have already discussed, is equal to customer development plus agile development. Fast iterations, incremental product development. It is about your customer feedback. It is about your rapid prototyping, rapid deployment by using this build, measure, and learn cycle by in least amount of time and in reducing your efforts. The why before the what. Life is too short to build something nobody wants. So what is the exact difference between minimum marketable features and minimum viable product? MMF, the smallest unit of functionality with intrinsic marketable value. The minimum viable product is the that version of a new product which allows a team to collect the maximum amount of validated learning about customers with least efforts. So MVP and MMF is minimum marketable features. Thank you very much. That's all from my side. Over to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your wonderful speech and sharing your knowledge with us. Now I would call upon Mr. Kamaleshwaran, MBA IEV first year, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good morning to one and all. It gives me an immense pleasure to deliver the vote of thanks in this session. It's time to thank our resource person, Dr. Bhaskar Gupta, for giving informative and interesting session.
To add with our sincere thanks to Dr. B. Hemakumar, convener of IIC, for supporting to conduct this event successfully. Last but not least, a special thanks to the participants for an energetic participation, and also I thank to our coordinator team for organizing this session successfully. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Bhaskar sir, for this enlightening session. Thank you very much.
Dr. Hema Kumar. I would like to thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to be a part of this webinar on this. I'm really very glad to take session on minimum viable product, and would like to thank the president, vice president of your IIC cell,
Yes.
and hope in the future to be a part of this IIC journey with the Puducherry Technological University.
Thank you, sir. Definitely, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you
Thank
all.
you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.